This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Border official nabbed in huge corruption case. A baby is shot by his own father. And the phantom gunman of Phnom Penh has made a most unwelcome return. But firstly, our headline story. The border dispute with Thailand rolls on, and there seems to be nothing but more bad headlines, as no headway seems to be being made in resolving this issue. Now, I myself am a newsman. To be precise, I am the Khmer Times newsman. It says that in the corner of the screen. And some may think that that would make me biased. But I am not. And I honestly feel that Cambodia is doing all it can to resolve this dispute, with independent observers and looking to the UN to help to resolve these issues. The worst affected, though, are the over 1 million agricultural workers that now cannot enter Thailand to work, and they are in a very difficult financial position. Their very livelihoods have been snatched away from them. But there are others that seem to be benefiting from the border dispute, and they are benefiting big. As the Anti-Corruption Unit has arrested the former Deputy Police Chief of Bavat District after he accepted a $774,000 bribe from a Thai gang leader responsible for an online fraud ring. For the $750,000, the police chief was to help release 43 Thai nationals involved in online scams, and also to stop their deportation. According to the report by the Anti-Corruption Unit, 5 other people were also complicit in releasing these detainees. They included a military officer as well as other police officers. After the gang had been arrested, the deputy chief of Bavat District Police spoke with the crime boss to facilitate getting his Thai employees released. It was then the bribe was handed over. But this thing goes a whole load deeper, as the chief had paid $284,000 to other officials. But it was all in vain, as the gang were deported. And this case shows very clearly how much money is to be made in online fraud, as that one single gang of just 43 people was worth over $750,000. And believe me, they are the very tip of the iceberg. On this week's Crime Desk, a murderer can't be bothered to bury the corpse. A father shoots his own baby, and the dog fish killer is charged. Now, you know, when you kill someone, the biggest problem you have by far is getting rid of the body. Disposing of a corpse ain't as easy as you think. They are really cumbersome to carry, and very quickly they start leaking and they let out obnoxious odours. But the primary problem is, where do you hide the corpse? Well, burying your murder victim is always a sound policy, but only if you can be bothered to dig a hole big enough. Something one murderer failed to do this week. Foreigners buried body found after villagers notice hair poking up in field. Yep, someone could not be bothered to dig a hole big enough for his murder victim and left his head poking out of the soil. Man, is that ever lazy. Cambodian villagers made a gruesome discovery when they spotted part of a human head and its hair sticking up from the soil in a field. The police were soon called. After exhuming and removing the body, the police found that the victim was an unidentified Chinese man, a man who at current still remains unidentified. The very latest on this story, though, is the body had a shirt wrapped around its face, and injuries to that body tell a terrifying story, as they show the victim was believed to have been tortured to death. The marks on the body show that the torture could have been carried out for many long days. The police at Current are hunting for a group of Chinese suspects in connection with this most horrific torture and murder case. This next story on our crime desk beggars belief, as a man has been arrested for killing ex-wife in a dispute over baby. And trust me, it gets a whole load worse than that. Police have arrested a man who fatally shot his ex-wife and wounded 4 others, including, now wait for this, the couple's child, who was just 20 months old. Yes, just a tiny little infant shot by his own father. The suspect is Nam Ang, a businessman from Khmer commune. The victim was Non Da, 30 years old, Nam Ang's former wife. According to the police investigation, the couple were divorced and they lived separately, with their 20-month-old son residing with the mother and her family in Kampot. Nam Ang visited his son without informing the mother or the relatives, and he then took the child back and took him to his own home in Passat. Days later, the mother and the 4 relatives hired a minibus and they travelled to Nam Ang's house to retrieve the child. And they did manage to collect the baby. However, the next day, as the family was returning to Kampot, Nam Ang pursued them in his car. He stopped the minibus and then he attempted to forcibly take back the boy. When the family refused to hand over the child, the suspect pulled out a handgun and opened fire, shooting at least 10 rounds. The husband then fled the scene. Police were soon there, and it was not long before the arrest was made. The suspect has now been charged with murder as well as possession of a firearm, and he will soon be sent to court for further legal proceedings. Now to a brief follow-up from a story from last week, as I feel it is important to see that when serious crime is committed by senior officials, the wheels of justice do turn and people are convicted. Do you recall this headline from last week? It was one of the most bizarre cases I have ever covered. A triple homicide that was all about a dog and a fish. A family were preparing to have guests over and they were preparing food in anticipation of their guests' arrival. But the neighbour's dog smelt the fish grilling and he fancied it for himself. So the dog entered the home and he ate the fish. This then led to the most curious set of events as a member of the family, who was now -1 fish, chased the dog and he threw a flip-flop at it. But instead of hitting the dog, the flip-flop hit the woman next door, the dog's owner. She became enraged and she phoned her husband, who was in fact a military officer. He turned up and he walked over to the neighbour's house, firing 14 shots into the family, killing 3 of them and seriously wounding 1 more. Well, the very latest is that the military officer has now been arrested and charged. The military officer is charged with murder accompanied by cruelty, and his wife is being charged with instigator of murder accompanied by cruelty. And both those charges carry a life sentence. All because a dog ate a fish. Now for a headline that is worthy of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's greatest invention, Sherlock Holmes. It's like something that belongs in the gaslit streets of old London town when the Ripper stalked the streets back in 1888. The headline read, Phnom Penh's phantom gunman strikes again after absence of over a year. Quite incredibly, a gunman who has been on the loose since May of 2022 is back. The phantom gunman first appeared back then in 2022 when he fired 3 shots from a car with no number plates. He then fled. Nobody was injured. Then 1 week later, a car pulled up and 4 more shots were fired, and it then sped off into the night. It was not until July the 8th that he reappeared again. This time, 5 shots were fired near the Russian embassy. 12 days later, back again. More shots sound out in the dead of night. Then yet again August the 20th and again on December the 12th. But this time he was caught on camera. This is the vehicle seen driving away from the scene, which was oddly called the Phantom Mobile by one of our more linguistically adventurous journalists. Well, after a 1-year absence, the phantom gunman has struck yet again. This gunman, who has now struck at least 8 times in the past 3 years. And this time he emerged from the shadows at 12:30 a.m. Witnesses, they say that they saw him pull up in a car and fire at least 5 rounds. Now, as to why he's doing this is a total mystery. And what he is doing is extremely dangerous, as bullets do not just fall to earth harmlessly, even if they are shot skyward. Their velocity, when descending, can kill. So, if you hear gunfire late at night, do us all a favour and capture that driver's number plate before his random gunfire kills an innocent person. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. Now, before we go to the weather, a little something from my week, just to make the weather a bit more interesting. And this is a cracker. I'm calling it What's in the Bag. And there's these big long line of rice sacks, you see, and they're full of something. Now, you can't guess what they're full of. Now, I'm going to lift the top here and then cut away so you can't see. Now you can see them there. They're on a dirt track that I was cycling down, and I was absolutely fascinated by this. It's only when you look over to the left it all becomes apparent. Have a look at this. These are worms, and look at the length of them. They are absolutely monstrous, and these weren't the only people I came across on this day doing this. There was literally mountains of worms. Look at what that kid's holding. They're like they're from Jurassic Park or something, and they were obviously harvesting them. And here we see that there's 2 ladies, and what they're doing is they're putting the live ones in the little red baskety thing, and down here these are the dead ones. So they've obviously been doing this not for decades, for centuries and beyond would be my guess, and everyone seems to get involved. It's just quite incredible. There was just literally mountains upon mountains of worms. So if we go back to those bags I showed you at the very beginning, those rice sacks, what we can see is what inside is an absolutely huge amount of worms. And here is your weather, and my goodness, it's exactly what's expected, although it's most unwelcome. We've got thunder and lightning across the board. We also have rain. If that's not enough, we've got lots of rain. As I scan across, I see your high temperature this week is 32. Weirdly, your low is 31. So very stable on that front at least. And the winds are gusting, but with an average of 6 kilometres per hour. This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.